Youth Digital Agency and Encounters with the Past and Present. Louise is EPress Associate Editor and Research Assistant at Unitec. Her background is in film and theatre, and she enjoys communicating messages to a specific audience in a collaborative environment using digital and transmedia methodologies. Thank you. Pass it over.
Thank you, Claire. Should probably bend that back, right? Hi. Good morning. Kia ora. Thank you all very much for having me. It's very exciting to be here. My name is Louise Saunders, as Claire just said, and she got that all off LinkedIn, so thank goodness I updated that last week. I'm really excited to share this project with you all. The project is More Than a War, 1914 to 1918, and it was a real pleasure to be a part of. So keeping the First World War centennial celebrations at the core of the activities, the project used a medley of digital platforms, including audio, video, archival images, soundscapes, social media. And it's actually a collaboration between Unitec academics and students, oral historians, heritage researchers, and community archivists from Auckland Libraries and from Auckland Council. So put simply, Communication Studies students created digital works about the First World War, and they were exhibited at Waitakere Library. These works were also then archived on a website and published with a report that provided the academic context and project insight. But this project is a lot more than that. More Than a War was conceived by the chief investigator, Dr. Sarah Donaghy, an oral historian for Auckland Libraries, Sue Berman, and senior lecturer Nina Seja. Now, at this point, I have to apologise because it was actually Sarah who is going to be here to present her project. So I'm really sorry to say you have me. I will do my best. And I will do it actually from my perspective, led by Sarah's awesome, well-written report. So my involvement with the project is personal and professional. I've got 3 hats in this project. I was a student in it, I later became a leader in it, and then at the end I got to publish it. So I have been involved from the beginning to the end, and it's been a really exciting thing to be a part of. So I'm actually the associate editor at EPress. EPress is an open access online academic publishing house at Unitec, and we publish on our website both traditional and non-traditional academic works produced by Unitec staff and students and associates. So our esteemed editor-in-chief, Evangelia Papautsaki, is here with me today. Hi, Valia. She's going to back me up with any of my information and knowledge gaps. She may answer questions as well, so hopefully we do hear from her. She's a lot more articulate than me, so thank you for coming. So we really enjoyed working as the publishers on the project. We really like this job. So it was actually a really complex project from the outset for Sue and Sarah and Nina. How do you go about doing a multi-partner research project that also has a curriculum element? And then for us as the digital publishers at the end, how do we quality assure and publish this research? So the research conceived by Sarah and Sue, they originally wanted to engage the students in a community-based project using the practice of oral history. And they decided upon the centennial commemorations of the First World War as the perfect opportunity for collaboration and engagement, introducing students to the potential of presenting stories as digital narratives through the practice of oral history. Now, the third collaborator, Nina, she'd already been delivering courses to communication studies students based on digital content creation. And in these classes, we'd been asked to engage with archival sources, to emphasize different forms of content development, and we were always encouraged to include personal history in our digital narrativity. And this interest in new methods of digital pedagogy further extended to transmedia, which I personally embraced. It became a central component of the framework for the students participating in this project. So how to begin? How to begin a project that brings to life personal narratives of the war years? Well, firstly, these students were introduced to the historical context. So remember, they're communication studies students, they're not history students or heritage or culture students, so that was a good place to start. And then we were introduced to the tools of digital storytelling practices, we were taught research methods, and then we were taught the ethics involved in all of these things. We were trained in oral history interview techniques and various transmedia platforms. And then finally, after working all semester on our assignments, the first year students produced a proposal which had to be very academic. It had to acknowledge their technologies, how they were going to use them, and how they were going to integrate oral history into the project. They had to produce an individual digital project, and then they also had to produce a group digital communication project demonstrating oral history, creative understanding, and digital literacy. Then my group, the second years, we produced again a proposal. We had to show how we were developing our theoretical skills. We had to include a justification of our technology, our approach, our understanding of the audience, and how this was going to build a transmedia narrative. And then lastly, we had to hand in, of course, a group digital project. It had to use communication technologies, and it had to contribute to the transmedia narrative that unified all of our projects. So I want to introduce you to an example of some of the resulting student work. When Enemies Become Family is an intergenerational project. It's by Sam. Sam interviewed his grandmother, and she talks about the relationship of her father and her father-in-law, who actually fought on different sides of the war, but they're connected through a new generation of New Zealanders. It's a lovely piece, and I'm going to play the first couple of minutes, and I highly recommend when you get a chance to go back and watch the rest of it.
I think it's just such a waste of time. I think really, if people can communicate, communication is very good, but you maybe learn this later on in life. But communication is better than fighting, and I think it's very sad that there has to be wars. But I'm an idealist, and it's all very well for me to say now, when I look back.
Father dear, I've just finished mass and I'm here in the YMCA.
Welcome to When Enemies Become Families documentary. My name is Samuel McLaren, and I'll be interviewing Nolene Mercer, my nana. I will be asking her about Joseph Vella, her father, and Richard Mercer, her father-in-law, their experiences through World War I, and ultimately the lifelong connection made.
Well, my name's Nolene Mercer, and near Vella. I was a Vella before I got married. And my family, I've got, my husband's passed away, Ron, and I've got 6 living children. I had one between Richard and Barbara, and he was killed in a road accident. But there's Richard and Barbara and Joseph, and I had twin girls, and that's my family.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful childhood.
What was it like?
I had wonderful parents. I was very, very fortunate, loving and caring parents. I was very disciplined, and I thank God every day, because when you get older, it comes in handy.
Did World War I impact your life at all?
Well, it must have, because my father came over from Croatia in 1925, and he was under the Austrian-Hungarian rule in Croatia, and he fought in the war then. And he was 14 when the war started. He was 17 when he went into the Navy, and he was in there for 2 years. In those days, they didn't talk about the war very much because they'd been through such a lot. He had 3 brothers killed in the war. So whenever we spoke about his mother, whenever he brought up the subject, he started to sort of get tears in his eyes. But he never told us too much about it. My thoughts on World War I and to witness them.
I recommend going and checking the rest of that one out. It's really sweet. I don't know if anything about the war is meant to be sweet, but she's quite lovely. The next one I want to show you is called Fredipedia. It's a genealogy project. Ooh, here we are. Now, Sky, she made a timeline on a blog of all the events that happened to her great-grandfather during World War I. She blogged about it. It was live. And what was really exciting about this project was she actually found a unknown New Zealand relative came forward after reading this blog. It's very cool to see our projects out there in the real world having an effect. So this is, Sky made a short digital story to show this one off. Sorry about that.
There's a long, long trail a-winding into the land of my dreams, where the nightingales are singing and the white moon beams. There's a long, long night of waiting until my dreams all come true, till the day when I'll be going down that long, long trail with you. There's a long, long trail a-winding into the land of my dreams, where the nightingales are singing and the white moon beams.
Now, there's a ton of projects. I'd love to show you them all because I'm really proud of all of my fellow students who all worked very, very hard. The last one I'll show you before I show you mine is Gallipoli 1915. This one is a dramatisation of a fictional nurse. Her name is Annie Jones, and students based all of the information they got from the archives, the National Library. And it is a digital story that they put together.
My name is Nurse Annie Jones, and I was 22 when the war began. For all the people I'm surrounded by, here I am, alone, within my head. My thoughts are both the sanity and madness of my soul. The creaking ship in which I worked on made my stomach queasy as I ran towards the entrance, helping the wounded be carried to the stretchers, crammed into long lines that served as beds in the opposite room. The salty smell of the grey swirling sea was obscured by the scent of the wounded and dying soldiers. I ran to the soldier's aid, my freezing hands shaking from the adrenaline. I could not tell where the wound was, as the dark red blood had soaked the entire left side of his shirt. I called to him and asked where it hurt, but he did not reply, his moans of agony muffling any other sound. I hope the blood on him was not his alone, because if it was, I can't imagine how he will survive the night without the loss of blood consuming him. I gently remove what I can of his shirt and quickly get alcohol and a clean cloth to begin to remove the worst of the blood and dirt. The moving bodies around me and the rocking ship underneath my feet made it hard to do my job quickly, but I wanted to save him. His face looked paler and paler, and I shouted out for someone to bring water. His name was Private William Ashford, and he was 19 when the war started. He served in Gallipoli with hundreds of his brothers, witnessing the horrors of the war. I saw hundreds scream in agony before me, but held my breath and went on. I saw hundreds lingering between life and death, but did not let my tears show. I saw hundreds perish before me, but risked my life to save those I could. I struggled to find clean water, and the scorching heat made my hands shake. I desperately needed to clean him, the poor soldier who was shot during the latest attack. The sweat prickled on my forehead and ran down my back. I thought back to nursing college and my best friend Fanny Wilson. When we received our nurses' certificates, we were so young and full of giggling excitement. I never imagined it would be like this horror. I realize now how cushy our college in Wellington had been. We were located under a dirty tent, but the sun still came through, making it difficult to move. Once I found a bottle of clean water, hiding behind a box of the thread bar. Stained rags were used in place of the neat bright white cloth I was used to. I ran to his aid. I began cleaning his arm, carefully as not to hurt him further, but he made no sound. I tried to call his name. The tattered identification in his trouser pocket read, Joseph Evans. But he did not respond. He only looked at me, his blue eyes teary, and his face smeared with mud and sweat. I could still hear the distant firing of guns, but tried not to think about the danger outside. I had to save him. I had to make this better. I saw hundreds scream in agony before me.
Other projects produced by other students included blogs, there were curated art exhibits, there were wall posters, and then my group, for example, we produced an interactive exhibit called Help Me Tell My Story. Ours was a work on the nameless who resulted from the war, be it a body without a name, a personal item unclaimed by family, or as in our case, the image of an unknown soldier. As an interactive exhibition piece, the work engages the audience to participate and to share their First World War stories, even if that was the experience that they were having right then and there at the exhibit. So in the exhibit space, the image of our unknown soldier, which was given to us by permission of with permission from the Alexander Turnbull Library. The image of this unknown soldier was displayed on the monitor. And inspired by the young man's picture, audience members are encouraged to enter their reflections, their connections or heart comments into the tablet. And once entered, their comments appear in real time on the monitor. So that's what you're seeing now. The last time this was exhibited, those are the unfiltered comments of the audience who came and participated. So we feel that the soldier's unknownness lends the audience his eyes, giving permission to engage in his story and add to the collective knowledge of the First World War and to our personal connection, no matter how indirect, with the effects of war. And this is where I can say that the project by Sue, Sarah and Nina's project truly realised its potential, because our group is a perfect example of that. I mean, to meet the assignment requirements, we pitched our concept, we produced a model, we received our grades, and that should have been it. But we actually connected with the topic, we connected with our soldier, and we desperately wanted to find the technology to make it happen. And so we hunted down and befriended a front-end developer and a back-end developer, both of which were doing their masters at the Media Design School in Auckland. And we convinced them of the righteousness of our project, and in our spare time, and around each of our different course requirements, we brought our project to life. So there were a lot of challenges and learnings along the way, and they've been very useful to all of us. I can say that it became apparent to the Communication Studies students very early on that though we might be marvellous Communication Studies students, we had pretty limited basic digital technology skills, and that we needed to convince and collaborate with others to really get anything done. We were underfunded. By that I mean we had no money. So how do you pay for even basic things like domain names or hosting? And how does the project live after the production team has left and taken all their technology knowledge with them? And since I've finished this project and I'm out working in the real world, I have actually encountered this. It's something I think that does need addressing, is funding and the life of a project past the people who make it. So we were no longer working with an assignment scope. We didn't have a lecturer holding our hand anymore. It was very exciting, and our project was defined by what we 5 strangers could create and what the Waitakere Library and Unitec could actually support. So we had no resource. We had to negotiate for an iPad and for a monitor. These needs were graciously met by Auckland Libraries and by Unitec. Though they didn't actually give us the high-spec gear that we thought we needed. Because it was our project, we needed really high-spec gear. We had to learn to be agile and adjust to what we actually got. It was frustrating, but it was also incredibly exciting, and it was probably the best learning experience that we had in our entire time as students. More than that, we connected with the topic on a personal level. Through our unknown soldier and through the process of working collaboratively, our developers, Aidan, who's from South Korea, and Kevin, who is from China, they both told me that they could now actually identify with the First World War. It might be a very small thing, but it meant something very real to them. They were proud to be involved in the project. They felt closer to New Zealand, they felt closer to our history, and what was interesting to me is that they also felt closer to their own history because of it. So the next time I was involved with this project was as a publisher. And how do you quality assure and publish something like this? So all of the students used visual methodologies. And the most important part of that is reflexivity, because by watching what you produce, you engage with the experience and you watch it with different eyes. And we were really keen to celebrate this at EPress. And for us, that meant that we had to embrace a holistic approach. We needed to create a digital space for the student research outcomes and for reflection. So we decided, along with Sarah, the author, to host the projects on a micro website. Sarah, Sue and Nina, they authored a report. It gave context to the projects, it articulated the method and the student journey and digital storytelling, the collaborative approach that they've taken. So you can actually see we've got all the projects listed down here, which you can engage with. And then the more academic element, the project report, supporting all the projects is in there. To quality assure it, we focused on the content and the method. We engaged academics and practicing professionals of World War I and digital archival methodologies to review the website for us and to provide feedback for the authors. So to finish this, before we have questions, I want to wrap it up using Sarah's own words, because I really can't do better than that. Through More Than a War, a unique digital voice has been given to the historical record in ways that allow the user to engage interactively with the content. And this is a really novel direction for digital storytelling in New Zealand, demonstrating the innovative quality of this work. The project significantly enhanced student engagement, I can attest to that, and learning. Our creative responses not only contributed to the practice of transmedia and digital narrative, but also to the historical record. And finally, the project exemplified the benefits of successful collaborative relationships. And again, I'd like to say that some of those successful collaborative relationships were a lot more unexpected than others. I would also like to give the student journey the last word.
My dearest William, as you read this letter, I will be on my long journey home. I have learnt and witnessed a lot whilst researching women's stories of the war, although I do miss you dearly, my brother. I long for the day I will see you and the family again. As I began my widespread research, I knew near to nothing about the impact women had on the war. I was always taught that men were the only ones we had to thank for any victory our great country gained. I now have a new compassion and gratitude for how my future will now be shaped by the actions of these great women who stepped up during the war. This makes me wish I had been of an elder age so I too could have helped to make a difference. I have gained such fascinating insight to 3 particular women's lives and cannot wait to share these stories with you. I found a number of scholarly books that kept me awake for hours, learning more and more about these women. Vesta Tilley was the name of a woman, a performer, should I say, who was a male impersonator and assisted convincing unwilling war recruits to serve our nation. Her story is so intriguing, and you can see just how ironic it is that none other than a woman was helping to recruit for the army. Soon I shall be home, and will elaborate on my findings. Just know that I have widened my wisdom and have a new outlook on the times of war, and can say I am prouder than ever to be a woman. Send my love to everyone at home, and take care for now. Yours truly, your big sister Jennifer.
And that be it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I think, is there time, Claire?
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So if we could use the microphone, if anybody does have any questions for the video.
Not all at once. Stop.
How did the collaboration originally come about? Did one of the professors reach out to the museum, or did the museum reach out to the school?
Sue works for Auckland Libraries, and Sarah was one of the project leaders, I believe, at Unitec, and they'd been wanting to use the the research method of taking oral histories to engage students digitally. So they went from there, and then they got Nina involved, and Nina was the other author, and she had been teaching us for a good couple of years digital methodology, so it was kind of a perfect collaboration. And I must say that when the topic of the First World War came into the classroom, it actually gave all of the things that we'd been learning real focus. They really got momentum then. Before that, you're just kind of learning stuff and you're like, yeah, blogging, yeah, social media. But once you actually had something to focus it on and then join it in a transmedia universe, really brought it to life for everyone. Yes.
Hi, I'm just interested whether there was a point in the project, the point was to take oral histories yourselves as students, which is why you didn't use existing oral histories from the First World War?
I think that was it. I'm having to speak on behalf of the author right now who's not here, and I'm very sorry. I wish I was Sarah. The first year students really focused on that oral history taking, which I believe was the point, and actually learning those methodologies. I was in the second year, and we really focused on using digital technologies to make a transmedia universe. And the content that we were all working with was the First World War. I hope that...
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Did you license your material after you created it?
Did we license it? It's all on the EPress website, and we are a Creative Commons open access site. So all of the students who were involved know about the licensing, and the authors know about the licensing. And all of the stuff that the students used, they had to use with permission from whatever archive it was. So thank you. Hi, Lee.
Hi, again. Thanks very much. That was really inspiring. Really interested in the partnership aspect. So you had a library, a tertiary institution, and students partnering together. What did you find was the hardest part about working in partnership?
I can only speak to witnessing that as a student, and I think the hardest bit was negotiating who would step forward and take responsibility for certain elements, but that was always worked through. It never became a showstopper. It was, for example, we wanted a really awesome projection of our soldier on the wall, which, it demanded. It demanded a whole white room, actually. Great big soldier. And the library wheeled out for us the day before a TV, like you used to watch videos in the classroom in the 80s. Like, they wheeled this out. I was like, oh! So between Unitec and the library, they were like, all right, let's sort this out. And they got us a lovely big monitor to go on the screen, so to go on the wall. They gave us a whole wall, not a whole room, but so they worked it out. I can't speak to anything else though. But Valia might.
To add to that is that it doesn't actually take leadership. So you needed to have individuals that drove the project. So you had two oral historians and representing two institutions. Without that leadership, it was a good idea, but it wouldn't have happened.
There were strong leaders in the project. Cool, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time.